They laughed when they saw him, a 5'6" kid in a league built for monsters. They said, he'll never survive in the NHL. Too small, too fragile, too easy to crush. But that's the thing about hockey. It's never just about size. It's about heart. It's about fire. And no one burns hotter than a kid who's been doubted his entire life. Every scout, every analyst, every so-called expert had already written his story before it began. They said his dream was unrealistic, his frame too light, his chances microscopic. But every once in a while, someone comes along who doesn't fit the mold, someone who breaks it. Cole Caulfield didn't come to the NHL to blend in. He came to expose the illusion that size equals strength. He wasn't the tallest. He wasn't the heaviest. But the first time you saw that release, that lightning-fast flick of the wrist that sent the puck screaming past goalies who never even saw it, you realized something. This kid wasn't small at all. He was explosive. He was fearless. He was a spark in a league full of giants waiting to be humbled. And the shock came fast. The same people who said he'd never last were suddenly scrambling for excuses. Lucky shot, they said. Beginner's momentum. But luck doesn't score overtime winners. Luck doesn't humiliate pros who've spent a decade mastering defense. What Cole Caulfield had wasn't luck. It was inevitability. Because when he steps onto the ice, the rink doesn't see 5'6". It sees a storm coming. And if you think this is just another underdog story, you're not ready for what this kid did next. He wasn't supposed to make it here. In a sport where size is worshipped, where 6-foot defensemen move like bulldozers on skates, Cole Caulfield looked more like a kid sneaking into the rink than the next NHL star. At 5'7", he stood eye level with the crossbar and well below the league average. Scouts didn't see a franchise player, they saw a liability. Coaches worried he'd get crushed in open ice. Analysts called him a college-level scorer, not a pro. The message was clear: dream smaller. But Cole never listened. From the frozen ponds of Wisconsin to the bright lights of the U.S. national team, he turned doubt into oxygen. Every shift was a statement. Every goal, a quiet act of rebellion. He wasn't built like the others, but his shot, that blistering whip crack release, was something out of a different universe. When most kids were learning to skate backward, Cole was already dissecting goalies, studying angles, and turning the net into a target range. He wasn't just scoring goals. He was rewriting how a small player could dominate a big man's game. And then came the shocker. In 2019, he shattered expectations with 72 goals in 64 games for the U.S. National Team Development Program, tying Austin Matthews' program record, confirmed by USA Hockey. He was electric, lethal, unstoppable. Every game he played looked like a highlight reel in motion. Yet when draft day came, something surreal happened. Team after team passed on him. Once, twice, 10 times. 14. Players with fewer goals, weaker shots, and half his hockey sense went ahead of him. The disbelief in the room was palpable. The kid who scored more goals than anyone in his USNT DP class was being ignored again. Finally, at 15th overall, Montreal called his name. The crowd cheered, but Cole didn't smile like someone relieved. He smiled like someone challenged. That smirk said, "You all just made a mistake, and I'm going to make you regret it." The Canadians hadn't just drafted a sniper. They drafted vengeance wrapped in skates. In the weeks that followed, analysts labeled him a risk pick. But to anyone who'd watched him play, it wasn't risk. It was inevitability. The size they mocked became the very thing that fueled him. His low center of gravity, his agility, his quick release shot, all advantages in a league that had grown slow and complacent with bulk. The kid they dismissed as too small was built perfectly for the modern game. Cole Caulfield wasn't supposed to make it. He was supposed to disappear in the shadow of giants. Instead, he was about to burn bright enough to blind them. Because the moment he laced up for Montreal, the NHL was about to learn something brutal. The kid they overlooked wasn't just small. He was the storm they never saw coming. When Cole Caulfield first stepped onto NHL ice, most people thought they knew how this story would go. Another promising rookie, another undersized scorer trying to find his footing among men twice his size. They expected flashes of potential, a few nice plays, maybe a goal or two before reality hit. But what they got instead wasn't a nice story. It was a revelation. From his very first practice, people stopped talking about his height. Because when Cole released the puck, it sounded different. That shot, that sharp, cracking echo, became his signature. It wasn't heavy like Ovechkin's cannon or wild like McDavid's rushes. It was surgical, fast, and violent. Goalie said the same thing. You don't see it, you hear it. The puck didn't travel. It appeared. One blink and it was behind them. That release, a combination of wrist snap, angle shift, and split-second deception, wasn't built on power. It was built on mastery, timing, accuracy, prediction. Cole wasn't reacting to the game, he was controlling it, and that's what made the difference. He had an instinct most players never develop, a sixth sense for space. He He'd drift into quiet zones that defenders ignored, and just as they turned their heads, the puck was gone, the red light flashing. He wasn't the biggest, but he was always first. First to move, first to shoot, first to make the play no one saw coming. Then came the moment that changed everything. May 2021, Montreal Canadiens versus Ottawa Senators. Overtime. The puck found him on his stick for half a second. Just enough. A quick shift, a flick of the wrist, and the net rippled. His first NHL goal. In overtime. The building may have been empty due to restrictions, but through every television across Canada, you could feel it. That spark. That electricity that says, something just started. And then he did it again. The very next game. Another overtime. Another winner. Back-to-back walk-offs. Something that even the veteran stars rarely achieve. 2 games, 2 game winners. The 5'7" kid from Wisconsin had just introduced himself to the league with a mic drop. The headlines couldn't write themselves fast enough. The smallest man on the ice, the biggest moment in the game. But the shock wasn't just that he scored, it was how he did it. The composure, the confidence, the sheer disbelief on the faces of defenders who'd been in the league for years. This wasn't a rookie surviving. This was a sniper arriving. Fans began to realize they weren't watching a nice underdog story. They were witnessing a phenomenon, the kind of player who bends the rhythm of a game, who rewires defenses, who makes you lean closer to the screen every time he touches the puck. In the league, they had no idea what was coming next, because in just a few weeks, Cole Caulfield wouldn't just score on NHL pros, he'd humiliate them on the biggest stage of all, the playoffs. The 2021 playoffs were supposed to bury the Montreal Canadiens. They limped into the postseason as underdogs, outmatched on paper, written off by analysts before the puck even dropped. The narrative was already set, a first-round exit, a quick goodbye, and a long off-season ahead. But no one told Cole Caulfield that story, because when the lights got brighter, when the hits got harder, and when the world expected him to crumble, he didn't just rise. He shined. Pressure that breaks veterans seemed to wake something up in him. Every time he touched the puck, you could feel it, that pulse of danger, that sense that something electric was about to happen. He didn't play scared. He played like a man possessed, like a kid who'd been waiting his whole life for this moment. Montreal didn't just need a score, they needed a spark, and Cole became the match that set their entire postseason on fire. By the time the series against Toronto reached its breaking point, Caulfield's confidence had become contagious. His energy, his creativity, his absolute fearlessness, it was spreading through the locker room. The smallest player on the ice was making the biggest plays, setting up goals that flipped games and celebrating like he had nothing to lose. Then came the shock. Against Vegas, a team stacked with seasoned stars and brute force, Cole didn't just keep up. He toyed with them. He threaded passes through defenders who couldn't even turn fast enough. He danced through open ice, outsmarted goaltenders, and delivered plays that left commentators speechless. His connection with Nick Suzuki became something magical. 2 young guns rewriting the script of the postseason. They didn't look like rookies. They looked like a new era. What stunned the hockey world wasn't just the highlights, it was the poise. Caulfield logged barely 14 minutes a night, yet his impact felt endless. He didn't need more time, he needed only moments, and he owned every one of them. When others hesitated, he attacked. When others tensed, he smiled. He was fearless in the face of giants, calm in chaos, unshakable under pressure. By the time Montreal reached the Stanley Cup final, the question wasn't whether Caulfield belonged, it was how far he could go. The kid who was once doubted for his size had become the heartbeat of a team that refused to die. Every stride, every goal, every grin behind that cage told the same story. This wasn't luck. This was destiny meeting preparation at full speed. Cole Caulfield had arrived and the league was officially on notice. But the higher he climbed, the more brutal the spotlight became. Because in hockey, glory is never permanent. And for Cole, the hardest battle was still waiting in the shadows. After the fairy tale playoff run, the whole hockey world was watching. The kid who had lit up the postseason was expected to soar into superstardom. Montreal fans were chanting his name before he even touched the puck. Reporters called him the future. The Canadiens had found their spark, their scorer, their franchise hope, and Cole Caulfield was supposed to carry it all. But the game of hockey has a cruel sense of balance. What goes up too fast often hits the ice even harder. As the new season began, the magic started to flicker. Those perfect releases that used to cut through goalies now found iron. The puck stopped bouncing his way. The swagger that once electrified the rink began to fade, replaced by frustration. Slowly, the headlines shifted. Caulfield cool down, sophomore slump, then the one phrase that cut the deepest, too small after all. The same voices that had once cheered his rise were now whispering that maybe the league had figured him out. And that's when the real battle began. Not on the ice, but inside his own head. For the first time, you could see it. The joy that defined him was gone. The hesitation before a shot, the frown after a miss, the weight of expectation pressing down on his shoulders. Every player faces adversity. But for Cole, it hit differently. He wasn't just fighting defenders anymore, he was fighting doubt. Then came the shock that changed everything. Montreal fired their head coach. The locker room was quiet, the morale low, and the team direction unclear. But in the chaos came a spark. A new face behind the bench, Martin St. Louis, another undersized legend. A player who had lived the same story, doubted, dismissed, and ultimately victorious. St. Louis knew the pressure of being told you weren't enough, and he knew exactly what Cole needed. Not a new system, not a new line, but a new belief. You're not small, St. Louis told him one day at practice. You're sharp. You see what others can't. Play like it. That single sentence hit deeper than any pep talk could. It wasn't just coaching, it was understanding. One undersized warrior passing the torch to another. And just like that, something reignited inside him. The hesitation disappeared, the smile returned, the fire came back to his eyes. With St. Louis behind the bench, Cole rediscovered the thing that had made him unstoppable in the first place. Joy. Pure, fearless joy. He finished the season red hot, reminding everyone that greatness isn't about perfection. It's about persistence. Cole Caulfield fell, but he didn't stay down. He came back sharper, hungrier, and more dangerous than ever. And the next time he stepped on the ice, the league finally realized they weren't watching a comeback. They were watching a transformation. By the next season, Cole Caulfield wasn't just another young player finding his footing. He was a fully loaded weapon. The league had learned his name, and goalies had learned to fear it. No longer just the 5'7" kid. He had become the nightmare who haunted pregame film sessions. Every scouting report said the same thing. Don't give him space. Don't blink. But even when defenders closed the gap, it didn't matter. His release was still too fast, too deceptive, too lethal. In just 46 games, Cole scored 26 goals, a pace that screamed superstardom. If injuries hadn't interrupted his season, he was tracking for over 50 goals for a player everyone said was too small, too weak, too unlikely. The same voices that once doubted him now used a different word, sniper. And it wasn't just because of his numbers, it was the way he did it. Every goal carried style, emotion, and precision. He didn't just score, he performed. But what made Caulfield truly different wasn't just the goals. It was his demeanor. He played with a joy that you could feel. Every grin after a goal, every fist pump, every hop into a teammate's arms, it was contagious. He wasn't cocky. He was confident, fearless, unapologetically himself. And that's what made it sting so much for defenders. They weren't just getting beat. They were getting outplayed by someone who made it look fun. Then came the moment that shocked everyone. Mid-season, at the height of his dominance, everything stopped. The goals, the highlights, the celebrations, gone. A shoulder injury, one wrong movement, and suddenly, his season was over. Fans held their breath, the team doctors called for surgery. Just like that, the hottest scorer in the league was done for the year. For most players, that's the beginning of a fade. Momentum lost, confidence shaken, reputation questioned. But Cole Caulfield isn't to most players. He took that setback and turned it into fuel. While others rested, he rebuilt. While others doubted, he studied. That same determination that had carried him through every slight and every too small label came roaring back, stronger than ever. The kid who once had to prove he belonged was now fighting to prove something even greater, that nothing, not even injury, could stop him. He'd shown he could embarrass NHL pros with his shot. Now he was going to show them something far scarier, because the only thing more powerful than his release was his refusal to quit. Mid-season, everything was clicking. Every shift looked like a highlight reel waiting to happen. Cole Caulfield had become Montreal's spark, its heartbeat, its future. Each game felt like a showcase. The shot, the smile, the swagger. Then in an instant, it all stopped. A collision, a grimace, and a silence that froze the arena. A right shoulder injury. Season over. For most players, that's where the story slows down. Where confidence fades, momentum dies, and questions begin. But Cole Caulfield has never been most players. When others see setbacks, he sees blueprints. While fans and analysts debated how long he'd be gone, Cole was already plotting his return. The same relentless drive that had fueled his rise, now focused entirely on one goal: come back better than before. Rehab wasn't glamorous. It was lonely, quiet, repetitive, the kind of grind that breaks even seasoned veterans. But Cole attacked it like he attacked goalies, with purpose, precision, and obsession. No shortcuts, no excuses. Every stretch, every rep, every drill was treated like overtime in Game 7. He didn't just rebuild his body, he re-engineered it. Then came the shock. What everyone feared would dull him instead refined him. Fans worried the surgery would weaken his shot, steal that signature lightning release that defined his game. But when he returned to the ice for the first time, it was like time had frozen. The puck snapped off his stick with that same crack. The net rippled with the same fury. The smile was back. The swagger was back. The monster behind the grin was back. And if anything, he looked even more dangerous. The injury had stripped away everything but hunger. You could see it in the way he skated. Stronger, sharper, faster. He wasn't just healed, he was reborn. Cole Caulfield's story had evolved from inspiring to mythic. The 5'7" kid who was never supposed to make it to the NHL had been stopped by the one thing bigger than him, fate itself, and even that didn't last. Because what came next wasn't just a return, it was a reminder to every doubter, every critic, every giant who thought the story was over, that you can't keep a storm contained forever. Every generation produces one player who doesn't just play the game, they change it. For Montreal, that player is Cole Caulfield. He isn't just a goal scorer, he's a statement. Every shift he takes, every celebration, every laugh behind the cage is a living reminder that heart beats height every single time. The same league that once doubted him now builds defensive plans around him. The same analysts who called him a long shot now call him the future. He's become more than a player. He's a symbol. To the kids too short to make the team, to the dreamers told they weren't enough, to every underdog sitting in the stands thinking, maybe I can do this too. Cole is proof that talent means nothing without love. And love means everything when you have the courage to chase it. And here's the shocker. The impact goes beyond Montreal. Around the league, teams are rethinking what makes a star. The NHL, once obsessed with size and power, is now embracing agility, vision, and creativity. That shift? It's the Caulfield effect. He didn't just fit into the new NHL, he helped shape it. He showed that skill and joy can coexist, that a player can dominate with finesse instead of force. Fans don't just cheer for Cole because he scores. They cheer because of what he represents. Possibility. The kid who was told he'd get crushed by the league now crushes expectations instead. Every goal he buries carries a bit of every doubt ever thrown his way. Every grin on his face is another message to those who said he couldn't. Watch me. And yet, despite the accolades, despite the highlights, despite the noise, Cole remains grounded. He still plays like the kid from Wisconsin who just loves the game. He still laughs on the bench. He still celebrates like it's his first goal. Because deep down, that's who he is. Not a superstar, not a brand, but a boy who fell in love with a puck and never let go. Now, every time he steps on the ice, it doesn't feel like the league is towering over him anymore. It feels like the league is trying to catch up. The 5'6" kid who embarrassed NHL pros has become something far bigger than anyone imagined. A living reminder that greatness isn't measured in inches, but in impact. He was told he'd never make it. He was told the league was too big for him. But now, when Cole Caulfield skates, it's the league that looks small. Because legends aren't defined by size. They're defined by how much they make the world believe in what's possible. So what do you call a 5'6" kid who embarrassed NHL pros? You call him proof. Proof that heart doesn't have a height limit. Proof that joy can be more dangerous than size. Proof that sometimes the ones the world overlooks are the ones who change it forever. Cole Caulfield didn't just survive in the NHL. He forced it to evolve. He reminded everyone why we fell in love with hockey in the first place. Because it's unpredictable, emotional, and driven by passion. He's not chasing records or revenge. He's chasing the puck like a kid chasing a dream, and somehow he keeps catching it. Every generation gets one player who makes you believe again. For Montreal, for hockey fans everywhere, that player wears number 22. Because Cole Caulfield didn't just prove the doubters wrong. He reminded the world that the greatest thing you can ever be is unstoppable when you love what you do.